Will democracy survive in the next couple of years?
And essentially we are the same.
And there are so many needs that Minnesota has.
What people are saying they need right now.
Access to Democracy is made possible in part by a donation from Firefly Credit Union. Firefly is the new name of U.S. Federal Credit Union, which has proudly served the financial needs of the greater Twin Cities community since 1925. At Firefly, we guide our members forward and give them the power to chase dreams by delivering the financial solutions they need to get ahead. From checking accounts to mortgages, we'll light the way. We are Firefly Credit Union, and this is life illuminated. By Thomson Reuters, providing legal professionals with intelligence, technology, and human expertise they need to find trusted answers. Thomson Reuters, the answer company. Online at thomsonreuters.com. And Dr. Charles Crutchfield of award-winning Crutchfield Dermatology in Eagan. Acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians, a Minnesota native who trained at the Mayo Clinic, Dr. Crutchfield personally treats all patients and states that experience counts and quality matters. Crutchfield Dermatology, look good, feel great, with beautiful skin.
And welcome. It's been too long since Sheriff Tim Leslie has been here, actually, although he was present for our 20th anniversary a few months ago. And but it's been 2 years almost since you were been on the show, and a lot has happened since then.
Thank you.
And
yes,
I might add that, although I missed the opening, that this is Access to Democracy, and we are now playing in 34 cities in Minnesota.
Wow.
So
Even better.
You can see us from really the northern suburbs or even Duluth across the whole southern sphere.
Wow.
So.
Your footprint gets larger and larger all the time.
Well, I think it's my backside that gets larger and larger,
yeah.
but that's okay.
Well, thanks for having me, Alan. Appreciate
It's
it.
always a pleasure. Now, one of the things that we were talking about briefly, and we haven't talked about before, the sheriff's office, which is a large complement of people. Mm-hmm. I was going to say men, but really of sheriffs and civilian personnel and some of your expertise, is how many people now?
Yeah, we're just shy of 200 people, and 83 of those are licensed deputies, police officers sworn to uphold the law, and they carry firearms. And then you have about 75 correctional deputies that work in the jail, because the sheriff manages the jail in each county across the state of Minnesota. So that distinguishes us from police chiefs. Police chiefs don't have jails, sheriffs do. And then I have additional civilian employees that make up the rest of that complement.
So that entails a big budget.
It does, $22 million.
Okay, now $22 million, and that's the budget from the people of the county.
Correct.
Unless there's some federal money that comes in there. But that means that you are dependent on the county commission for funding.
That's accurate.
And how does that work?
Yeah, so we prepare our needs and requests, and we present it to the county manager, Matt Smith. Then he vets that, and then we present it to the county board of commissioners, and then they decide what will be funded. And that, I think the Truth and Taxation meeting, was last week. And as far as I can tell, we're going to get everything we needed. We added an additional staff person to help with bookings in one of the satellite offices. We have 3 courtrooms in Dakota County. We have Hastings, we have Apple Valley, which is the Western Service Center, and we have the Northern Service Center in West St. Paul. And we needed a staff person in Western to help with fingerprints after someone is told by a judge to get fingerprinted for their book and release circumstance. So we got approval for that, as well as 24/7 nursing in the jail, which is a big move. That was an additional $400,000 into my budget. We continue to see a lot of mental illness and addiction that crosses our threshold in the jails across Minnesota and as well as Dakota County. And more we're relying on nursing to help us decide what this person needs next. If it's their medication, if they need to go to the hospital, if they need some counseling. Rather than correctional deputies doing that, we prefer that the medical professionals do that.
That's a big thing.
Huge.
One thing about Dakota County, though, I think that we have a really excellent Board of Commissioners. And I guess you could say yay or nay.
Exceptional.
But they recognize the importance of law enforcement, which is becoming more and more important in our society, maybe unfortunately, but it is what it is. And you get what you need.
I do. Oh, they've been very good to me. At the budget hearing I was at, I felt like I was not doing justice to the situation we face with drugs in our community. So I stopped my presentation and I said, you know what, Commissioners, if I can be so bold, I'd invite you to come tour the Drug Task Force. I think that would give you a better handle on what we see on a day-to-day basis. You could talk to the agents, you could talk to the commander, take a tour, look at what we see, and immediately two raised their hands. Commissioner Workman and Commissioner Holberg attended the Drug Task Force tour on Wednesday of this week. They found it fascinating, and now I have two more commissioners raise their hands. And I've actually just asked some of the senators of Dakota County, Jim Carlson, Matt Klein, Greg Clausen, Carla Bigham, and Senator Dan Hall. I've asked them if they wanted to have a tour as well, and so we'll see whether they avail themselves of that opportunity or not.
And which is a fascinating tour. And you have a lot of innovations. We entitled this "The Cutting Edge of Law Enforcement" because we are very fortunate in Dakota County, not only to have this commission, which oversees it, but to have a sheriff who recognizes that we need to be on the cutting edge of everything. Probably drug problems are probably the biggest problem that we face right now, more than crime in many instances.
Yeah, it is.
And now, do your people have jurisdiction statewide, even though they're only Dakota County sheriffs?
They do. They primarily, of course, they stay right here in Dakota, but those who are assigned to the Drug Task Force, for example, if they have to do a search warrant in St. Paul or Red Wing or Faribault, they can leave the county and they still have the authority to make arrests statewide. Correct.
So you work with the state troopers?
Yes, we do.
The state police,
Absolutely.
the Bureau of Criminal
Apprehension.
Apprehension, which is made famous in novels by one of our local authors.
Yes.
And then the cities or their individual police forces.
I work closely with the chiefs here in Dakota County, and Roger New in particular. Roger and I talk frequently. I was on the phone with John Rexigal from Apple Valley earlier today, so I have a contact with one of the police chiefs, usually every day in my week.
And we happen to be fortunate to have a county that has lower crime. It has crime, unfortunately.
Yes.
It has accidents, it has addictions, it has all the problems that we see in society, but statistically, we are a low crime county.
Oh, very much so. We have comparatively, we're a county of about 430,000 people. We have a very low crime rate. If you'd compare that to a core city of 400,000, I think we on average have maybe three murders a year in the county, maybe two. Most cities of 400,000 are in the 30s and 40s comparatively. So we do a very good job here. Yep, and it's a partnership.
And it's a partnership that's obviously a working partnership.
Absolutely,
So.
Absolutely.
Now, when you came in, you handed me this and you said, "Do you know what that is?" And I said, "Well, it looks like a green plastic bag, a badge or something." And you said, "Put it on your wrist."
I did.
So I'm going to put it on my wrist.
All right.
And we're going to see.
I'm bringing props now. I'm bringing props. Yeah.
Okay. Now, you told me press,
And look at that.
and look what we got there.
Yeah. Yeah, we.
Now, you call this a slap bracelet?
I did, yeah. It's been devised for law enforcement in the county to distribute to people we see out walking at night or in the early morning hours that are maybe not as visible as they could be. And we thought that would be a nice thing to do for our community to make sure that they're safe while they're out walking. What does it get dark at 4:30 nowadays?
Much too early
Yeah,
these
much too
days.
early.
Yeah.
So if you're out walking the dog or just out walking in the morning.
Yeah, in the morning, for instance, I noticed yesterday morning when I was walking the dog about 7:30, it was very foggy.
Yes.
So I couldn't see, so how is anybody going to see me?
Yeah,
That's,
well, we have this for you now, so you're all set for tomorrow morning when you're out walking. Yeah. And if you hear people that need those, just have them contact their local police department, because every police department in Dakota County, all 11 cities and the sheriff's office all have those now.
slap bracelet, folks.
Yeah.
And you can see it blinking, and it's tough to see under the lights of the studio, but
Right.
And off.
And off, perfect.
Terrific,
That'll work it
terrific.
too.
Now, one of the announcements that you made, in addition to this, and I accept, was an announcement you made recently that all sheriffs in Dakota County are going to have body cameras.
That's correct. The deputies in the patrol division will all be outfitted with body cameras. We're in the test phase right now. The county commissioners accepted our policy and provided resources for me to be able to do that. Our in-car camera systems were on its last legs, so we needed to upgrade. And we thought, well, while we're upgrading our in-car camera system, let's purchase body cameras at the same time. So we're in test. We have 2 deputies that one works days, one works nights. They're both testing them, and they're having very good results. One in particular circumstance, he came upon a crash scene, and a person had driven over 2 mailboxes in a rural part of the county, and the person that had been driving the car was in the ditch. So the car was parked on the roadway, but the person was in the ditch. So the camera on the squad car could capture the picture of the car, but would not have captured the picture of the person. So when the deputy gets out of the car and walks over and has this conversation in the ditch, you can tell the person was intoxicated by how he spoke, how he could stand. He was, wobbling, having trouble standing up. So that evidence becomes very valuable then in the criminal trial.
Makes for great evidence
Sure
in
does.
a trial, should you have a trial.
True, very much so. And it helps on frivolous complaints. Sometimes a person will get stopped and, the deputy was rude or whatever, and we'll make sure we look into that. And many times the body camera will reveal what exactly happened in that exchange.
Now, unlike years ago, we have male and female sheriffs now.
Yes, we do.
And they share the same jobs.
Yes, they do. Yeah, I have a female deputy. Jennifer Lenars is probably 5'3", 115 or 20 pounds. So she's very physically fit. She's done the Hawaii Ironman triathlon, which is a 2-mile swim and a 112-mile bike and a 26-mile run.
Well,
so she's physically fit, but she's just a small person. And she has to confront individuals a lot larger than her.
Well, that's like Sharon, my wife Sharon, who you know well and who's
I
gone
do.
through your academy.
Citizens Academy, correct.
She's in 3 exercise classes a week plus Tai Chi.
Oh, that's awesome.
And she's talking about doing a 4th exercise class.
You won't be able to keep up with her.
I can't now.
Yeah, exactly.
When we shake hands, I go down for a 9 count. But and I am not in that kind of shape, but good for her.
Yeah, it is.
And,
It is good.
Yeah. So we implement slap bracelets.
Yes.
And we're implementing body cameras.
yeah.
How often do we change our patrol cars?
Actually, it's quite an interesting system we have. The fleet system in the county of Dakota does a very scientific model. They manage the car in a system. So when the car starts to show a certain amount of repairs necessary, they will pull it out of circulation. When the transmission starts to go out, they know certain things are going to start to happen. It's on average around 110,000 miles and 3 years old. But if this car happens to be a lemon, they'll notice that before the mileage or before the yearly time is up, and they'll pull it out early. So it's kind of an interesting approach. They do it based on data.
So the cars are pretty modern. Have you
Oh, yeah.
gone to SUVs?
We have a mix. We have a mix between.
Most law enforcement seems to have gone to SUVs
Yeah.
because they seem to keep the equipment much better than
do.
in the trunk of Crown Victoria.
Yeah, the good old days. Those
Yeah.
Crown Victorias are long gone. I guess you see them occasionally in the city of St. Paul or Minneapolis, but I haven't seen any around here for a while.
You see them in the movies.
Yeah, I see them in the movies, exactly.
The Crown Vic.
Yeah,
That's
the
what
good
they
old
used to
Crown
talk
Vics.
about, the Crown Vic, yeah.
Yeah, so we think that by January 1st, we should have body cameras on all the deputies in the patrol division.
When do they switch them on and when do they switch them off?
Well, we do allow some discretion for that. We give that, we monitor that. There is no, right now, technology that turns them on, like the car. In the squad cars of Dakota County Sheriff's Office, if you hit 75 miles an hour, it automatically turns on. If you turn your lights and siren on, it automatically turns on. We don't have that for the body cameras with the ones we're testing right now. There are some out there that as soon as you remove your handgun from your holster, it turns on.
Really?
As soon as you step out of the squad car, it turns on. We're looking into doing that as
Yeah,
well,
that would
because I think
seem
it
to make sense, right?
removes the discretion from the deputy.
yeah.
And it doesn't. Then he or she doesn't have to decide between, will I pull my gun out or will I turn my camera on first?
Or when you get into court, have the defense lawyer say,
Exactly.
and why wasn't your camera on at that point?
Yeah.
Or something.
It just makes it look wrong if you haven't turned it on. Yep.
So, I notice also recently that you have implemented the use of drones. We're talking about cutting edge technology, and here's another aspect of it.
Yes. It's interesting. In today's age, when I ask who wants to be a part of the drone team, how many applications I get versus how many wants to be on the canine team. Recently, we asked for canine applications, we got 2. We asked for drone team applications, we get 12 or 13.
Really?
Yeah. Well, these young men and women, they grew up with technology. They're not afraid of it, they love it. And so we have a robust drone program. We have 3 drones that we use. We've doubled the number of requests we've had from across the county. We're the only law enforcement agency in Dakota County that has drones. They're used mostly for crime scene response. So you have a crime scene and you take photographs from up high with the drones. We do that a lot. We just did it in Egan, 2 weeks ago for the death of that 13-year-old boy.
That was very unfortunate
It's
accident
so sad.
on Diffley.
So sad.
And you wonder why was the kid without a helmet? Why was the kid not wearing reflective clothing? And it still doesn't make it any better. But I mean, 13 years old, it was really a tragedy. And of course, now we're having a lot of political pushback about having a crossing at that spot,
Yes.
or maybe even a crossing guard. I don't know.
Yeah, I've heard tunnel or all sorts of things.
But they called for your drones.
They did. The State Patrol called for the drone as they were doing their reconstruction, and we responded. And what we're hearing from the county attorney's office, Jim Backstrom and his chief deputy, Kathy Keena, is that it's becoming an expectation in many circumstance trials where the jury wants to see that overview and how best to do it from a video with a drone, given the overview of the crime scene. Here's where the car was, here's where the building was, here's where the person was seen walking. All those kind of perspectives are really important in a criminal trial.
And I read recently about a child that got lost. It wasn't in this state, I don't think. But they used a drone
Absolutely.
to help find the child. I mean, we have these infrared bearing capabilities now also, and they actually found a child in a cornfield using the drone.
We have that capability on our drones as well. It's forward-looking infrared, which takes the signature temperature of the ground and then reflects it against the body. So if it's a cool day like today, you have a 98.6 versus the 26 degrees or 29 degrees it is today, you'd be able to get that reflection of heat. And sometimes it's a deer, sometimes it's a dog or some other wild animal that we find in the woods, but it could be the lost child too.
Now, you have a very active Citizens Academy.
We do.
As I mentioned, Sharon is a graduate of it.
You're always invited.
And yeah,
You always have an invitation.
it's usually filled. The couple of
Oh, we
times I
do.
tried to get in
We
there,
do.
it was
We do
filled
fill
up.
it.
It fills up very quickly.
This year, for the United Way, we offered 2 slots to people who donated, and we got those 2 slots filled with donations right away. And we'll have another Citizens Academy starting in March.
Well, I'll have to keep my eyes
Keep
peeled.
your eyes
on it.
peeled.
Another thing that you have innovated is working with Triad, T-R-I-A-D. What is that?
That's a relationship between the community, law enforcement, and our elders. Our elders, just by the fact they are born of a different generation than we're currently in, sometimes are...
Most of our elders are younger than me. I just want you to know that. But
and they're trusting of humanity. They have a nest egg, and sometimes they're lonely. And that combination, sometimes people take advantage of that, like the phone call, hey, is this, hey, Grandpa? And the Grandpa says, oh, is this Marie? And they say, yeah, it's Marie. Yeah, I'm in jail, and don't tell my mom, but can you send me $10,000? They do send $10,000 occasionally. We've had those sad stories. The mail order bride from Russia, we've had a couple of those where people have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. So what Triad does is it tries to get out into the community and educate our elders on those kind of issues and other issues to be aware of.
particular fraud issues, yeah.
In particular fraud issues.
Well, we had the occasion about 3 or 4 years ago where I got one of those scammer calls. And I called you.
Yeah,
You called back.
I did.
And I think that person got a real shock
Yes.
when he got a call back from the sheriff.
As they
When
should.
they wanted me to pay a parking ticket that I didn't have, and there was a warrant out for me, and I was going to be picked up by the sheriffs. And
No, we
Didn't
don't
happen.
do that. We do everything via correspondence. You'll get a letter in the mail. That we would never do phone calls. No.
what about collection of DNA? Does your office do that, or does the BCA do
The
that?
BCA does. We were collecting for a while. A short time we did a pilot on that, but we have since stopped and let the BCA do that for us. We were getting sued by the ACLU, and we thought, why would we put the county taxpayers at risk for a lawsuit that really should be handled by the legislature? If the legislature wants county jails to take DNA from people, then they'll pass the law.
Now, somebody wants to become a sheriff.
Oh, well, we're always
What do they
looking for
have-
good people.
What do they have to go through, and how long do they have to train, and where do they train, and what
Yeah.
type of training is
Oh
it?
my gosh. Well, the minimum necessary is a 2-year degree in the state of Minnesota from an accredited institution. And if you go to the Peace Officer Standards and Training website, you can get all that information. So there's a bunch of colleges across the state.
Okay, forget about Trump University.
Yeah, we don't have that one. No, we don't have that one. And then once you're eligible, you have to pass a Peace Officer Standards and Training licensing exam. Once you pass that, then you're eligible to be hired by a law enforcement agency. That's when you put your applications in. And then, we compete with Lakeville, Burnsville, Eagan, Hastings, Rosemont, Farmington, West St. Paul. So we compete with all those for good people. So what we do is we do a lot of internal recruiting. So we'll bring people in as correctional deputies, and then we'll make them licensed deputies when they're ready, or explorers or park rangers. We have 20 to 25 park rangers annually, and those are people who enforce the rules in the parks. They drive, a marked vehicle, but they're not police officers. But they're in school to become police officers. So it works out really good for a kind of almost a paid internship program for us. And we recruit from that group a lot. In fact, our last job offer was a kid that was in the park ranger program.
And how long do they train?
Yeah, so they will
And
go
where?
through a skills academy at either Hennepin Tech, Rochester Community College, Hibbing, Alexandria. There's like 5 or 6 locations across the state where they have a 12-week police academy. Then when we get them, then we'll put them through a 2-week orientation academy here, how we do things at the sheriff's office. And then they go on the field training program, which is another 6 months of training with another deputy. We break it up. We have different deputies that they ride with to make sure they understand what we do here in Dakota County.
So by the time they step into that car on their own, they're well
They've had a
prepared.
lot of training. Yep, exactly.
Now, do these park rangers carry weapons?
No, they're not licensed peace officers. They're civilian, but they wear a uniform and they enforce the ordinances of the county.
I was going to say they can
just-
still give tickets.
They can
though,
still give
for, yeah,
tickets, parking tickets, and things like that.
people who do damage in some of our pristine areas, wilderness areas.
You're exactly right, and I just read a report from yesterday. Someone went in one of the parks, tore off the air dryer for the hand dryer. Just tore it off the wall. It's $200 damage, and then there's some. Occasionally, we get a broken lock or a window, but it's rather rare, but it does happen.
Yeah, unfortunately, these things do happen in this society.
Correct.
How much does domestic violence play into really the trauma that your officers endure?
Well, you bring that up, and that we've had 2 police officers kill themselves in the last 2 weeks in the state of Minnesota. We had one, a South St. Paul police officer, Sergeant Corey Slifko, committed suicide, and then the same day, a Rogers police officer committed suicide. So we're no different than any other human being. We're susceptible to the same pressures of life and circumstances, but we also have to see, unfortunately, some of the trauma of the world, people getting hurt, people getting killed in car crashes, people committing suicide. We run across that a little more frequently than the normal public does, and sometimes it affects us. We have to make sure that our people are healthy and well at all times. So, but domestic abuse is a common problem in the county. Usually it's tied to alcohol use or other dysfunction, and people don't know how to cope.
Or mental problems.
Yeah. We see a lot of anxiety and trauma that's unresolved, that manifests itself in other things.
It's kind of rampant in our society now.
It sure is.
And
it sure is.
we really have more to talk about, but we ran out of time to talk.
You're kidding
So
me. We're already done.
We
Oh my
got
gosh.
30 seconds, 29 seconds. Any message for the people of the many cities that are now part of our network?
Well, we do. I think we do a wonderful job in Dakota County, but I'm biased. But the people that I employ are the ones who really get the work done. I get to bask in their limelight and thank them for all the hard work they do. And it's rare that it's not. It's probably every week where I get an email or a letter thanking the sheriff's office. I love my job. I love being your sheriff, and I hope to do it again.
And it really is cutting edge office.
Thank
Tim
you.
Leslie, thank you so much.
Thank you, Alan.